Very glad that you are joining us, whether it's here in the building or online. Hi, Mum and Dad. If you are able, we would love it if you would stand and sing with us. We can say all of the right things, preach a sermon all day long, and still get it wrong. Gotta have love. Oh, they're gonna know us by our love. We could build the tallest steeples, lift our voices to the sky, but they'll only get so high without love. Oh, they're gonna know us by our love. So come on, all my sisters and brothers, we can all give a little more out to each other when it's all been said and done. Gonna know us by our love. We can't get to where we're going, we decide to let them go. All our reasons to withhold all our love. Oh, never make it without love. So come on, all my sisters and brothers, we can all give a little more out to each other when it's all been said and done. They're gonna know us by our love.
Welcome to Crossroads Church. Whether you're connecting online, in person, or on demand, thank you for making this time part of your week. If you're new to Crossroads, you may be asking yourself, what is this place all about? Well, it's pretty simple. Peace on earth. We're an open and affirming community of people committed to following the peacemaking path of Jesus. And this peacemaking path leads us to focus our work on rewriting what we call the 5 unacceptable truths. These unacceptable truths are 5 realities that hinder human flourishing and destroy peace on earth. Together, we work to replace spiritual emptiness with spiritual vitality, poverty with physical and financial flourishing, fear of the other with inclusion and affirmation, illiteracy with education and opportunity, and modern-day slavery with freedom. This is what we mean when we say, hope is here. Over the next hour, we'll experience the divine mystery together as we sing a few songs, listen for wisdom, and share in communion so that we might leave here inspired and equipped to follow the peacemaking path of Jesus in our everyday normal lives. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Reach out now and take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. Reach out now and take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. Reach out now and take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. Reach out now, take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. So come on, all my sisters and brothers, we can all give a little more out to each other when it's all been said and done. Gonna know us by our love. When it's all been said and done, gonna know us by our love.
Hello, everyone. You can take a seat. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It finally feels like fall. How many of you got out your flannels? I see a few of them. Well done, well done. Well, my name is Brooke. In my everyday normal life, I manage a day center for seniors. But here at Crossroads, I volunteer every now and again, and they are brave enough to give me a microphone at times. So you can talk to Kia about that later. But I have a couple things for you as we get started this morning. As you came in today, you should have received a program. If not, raise your hand, and Mary over here has some for you. She can get you one of those. If you are new here today, welcome. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. The program folder is specifically designed for you. It has lots of information inside that would be super helpful. So inside of your program are a few other things that I'd like to point out. So why doesn't everyone go ahead, take those out? You can grab those Connect cards, or if you're super tech savvy, we do have the app where you can click on that, and you can click on the Connect card in there as well. But the Connect card, everybody fill that out. We do that every week. If you are a regular attender, just put your name, email address, check the box, I'm a regular attender. If you're new here, please check the box new here and fill out as much as you feel comfortable sharing. You want to hang on to that Connect card until the end of the service. There's some things you're going to want to add along the way. And also in your program is a giving envelope. One of our core values here at Crossroads is generosity. So we want to make giving as easy as possible for you. So you can use the giving envelope to make a donation, or you can go through the app and give online. And if this is your first time joining us this morning, we do have a gift for you. It is a book called The God We Never Knew, and it's super helpful, especially if you are deconstructing, unlearning maybe some of those unhelpful teachings that have been given to you about God that you really don't find useful anymore. And if you are new here, please, on the way out in the auditorium, we have those books. Just grab one off of the table, take it home, and better yet, please come and see me. I will be standing under the Fresh Perspectives banner in the atrium during our meet and mingle time. I would love to meet you, answer any questions you may have. Happy to share about my own journey of deconstruction. So please come by and say hi. And if you are connecting digitally for the first time, just check the box on your digital Connect card and we can ship that book to you. And if you've been around for the past couple of weeks, you've probably heard about some kind of big event that is coming up. And if not, why don't you take a second with me and check out this video.
Spooky Palooza at Crossroads is fun for every family. Get candy and more candy as you trick or treat through 30 decorated booths and rock out to music at the family party. Have fun with games, door prizes, and more. Experience crafts, snacks, and photo ops with your favorite characters. Crossroads remains committed to doing our best to include families with disabilities. The Early Access Disability Inclusion Party includes the same great activities, but in a quieter, more sensory-friendly environment without the bright lights, loud music, and crowds. At both parties, families with preschoolers can take advantage of the Spooky Palooza activities for kids ages 5 and below. Make Spooky Palooza part of your family Halloween fun this season.
All right, Spooky Palooza. How many of you guys, did you guess what it was going to be? I knew it. So we want to make sure that Spooky Palooza is the biggest and most inclusive Halloween party in northern Colorado. And this morning, we're going to talk about how you all can make that happen. Now, I have a question for you. It's a trick question. Think deep in your mind. How many of you in the room have a friend? Okay, some of you aren't raising your hands. Please come see me. I have plenty of space to be your friend. But good news, for those of you that did raise your hands and do have a friend, how many of you can think about one person who might be interested in attending Spooky Palooza, maybe with their kids, nieces and nephews, their dog, their cat, their grandkids? Anyone? Oh, we're going to have to work on this. All right. It's all right. Well, for those of you that can think of those people, we've all just signed you up to invite that person. We know And I'm sure you all have experienced this too, where a personal invitation to a big event, something like Spooky Palooza, is honestly one of the most reliable and personal ways to ensure that someone will actually come and attend. So in each of your programs this morning, you should see 3 Spooky Palooza cards. No, our team didn't miscount or put those in there by accident. They're supposed to be in there. There's 3 of them. Because that is for you. You're going to take those and use those to personally invite those friends that you have to our inclusive event. Now, you can make plans to attend the event, with them, come together. Another simple way to, spread the news is through social media. You can share our Facebook or Instagram posts to invite more people to come and hang out at our Spooky Palooza event. And a friendly reminder too, we do need volunteers to make it a true success. And we're still looking for a few more people that might want to do a trick-or-treating booth, or you can also just join and volunteer on another part of our team. So please check the Spooky Palooza box on your Connect card, and one of our team will be happy to help you to get involved. Now, that's all that I have for you for right now, so go ahead, grab those talk notes. Ryan will be out in just a minute to the next part of our teaching series, Hope is Here.
All right, good morning. Nice to see everyone today. Thanks for coming out on this fall day. Colorado is such a schizophrenic weather place. It starts out at 40, gets to 80. So you can go swimming this afternoon, skiing in the morning, whatever you feel like doing. So it's great to see everyone. If you're a guest this morning, my name is Ryan, the lead pastor here at Crossroads. Inside of that program that's been designed specifically for you as a guest is lots of information about Crossroads, as well as my cell phone number. And if you are a guest this morning, kind of new, checking things out, maybe you've been here a few times and you'd love to learn a little bit more about this place, about myself, I'd love to get together with you. We can do coffee, we can do whiskey, we can whatever you want. I'm game. All right, so just shoot me a text message and we will get together. I'll try to answer or avoid as many questions as possible during that time. So we are in our series, Peacemaking 401, Hope is Here, which is the last stop on our peacemaking spiritual formation pathway. And many of you are in 101 right now that's taking place, or 201, which is happening on Saturdays. And this is just a way in which we kind of ground ourselves in a peacemaking spirituality. And so this series is really about, what is this church all about? What are we here for? And the idea is that every one of us who are here, and anyone else who might come over in the next, few decades or however long, would be able to say with clarity, this is what Crossroads is about. I want to be a part of that. Right? And so that's the goal, is that at the end of this series, we're all in or we're all out, and that's okay. But you'll be able to say with real clarity, hey, this is my church. This is the space that I want to give myself to, my time, my talents, my treasure, because I think it will make myself and the world a better place. Or I'm out. I don't think this will make myself a better person or the world a better place, which is a legitimate response. All right? So if you are new, this is your first time, real quick review. Maybe you came, but you've slept since the first week, and you're like me, and you forget, what was that all about? So week 1, we talked about there is something powerful that happens in connecting. And confusion tries to block our connection. And so this series is all about clarity around what we share. And in week 2, we talked about that there is a power that comes from focusing on a shared vision. And we said that our shared vision is that we are ultimately about equipping and encouraging everyday normal peacemakers here. And we have a niche. We have a group of people that we're kind of wired, and we have a burden to do that with. And that is the spiritually dissatisfied, the spiritually disconnected, deconstructing, and here's the kicker, people who love them. Right? So if you are a person who says, I'm not dissatisfied spiritually, I'm not deconstructing, that's wonderful. You probably better love people who are, though, if you're going to find fulfillment here. If you really don't care about people who feel lost spiritually, who are hurt by their spiritual experiences, if that's not a burden in your heart, this might be not for you. I don't know. But if you do have a burden for that, if you do have a burden for creating a space of healing and hope, then this probably is a place you would love to be a part of. And we talked about that week, what makes us unique. And we said we focus on wisdom, not rules. We said that we really love, so we fully include people, that our faith is ever and always evolving. And I said, your Monday is just as important as my Sunday. Right? That what we're here for today is about Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday in our everyday normal lives, how we bring hope and joy and peace and love into those spaces. And then we said we do have a guarantee that we try to live by here, and that is that there is no know-it-all leaders here. We have know-a-lot leaders. That's great. But we don't want to have any know-it-all leaders here. We always want to maintain a posture of humility. And then last week, we talked about the importance of understanding what our shared theology was, how we study, how we experience this divine mystery we call God. And we talked about two things, that we do that through pietism and peacemaking spirituality, our pietistic tradition and peacemaking spirituality. So if you weren't here and that interests you, you can check that out in the app or online, whatever it might be. Okay, let's move forward. No? Okay, we'll just stay right where we are. No, listen. And I want to thank Sean for inviting a guest today. I see you brought a skeleton with you. So that's spooky. And it seems like an Offspring Palooza is with him. They actually have little name tags. So that's the kind of creativity we're talking about. So, I mean, maybe bring a flesh and body person next week to church who could give in the offering. Just whatever. Only kidding. All right, one of our values around here is fun, so I appreciate it, Sean. Thank you very much, and we'll be talking about fun in a few weeks. How many of you know who Herman Melville is? You ever heard of Herman Melville? Maybe you've heard of the novel Moby Dick. He's the American novelist, wrote the book Moby Dick. And he said this. He said, we cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow man. Now, today we would say our fellow human being, right? But how many of you that kind of connects and resonates? That there's something about you that just knows we can't live for ourselves alone. We just can't do it. There's too deep of a connection. And as our world continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and technology begins to bring us closer and closer and more proximate with people who are different than us, we are faced with the choice of what to do with that. And sometimes we live our lives, if we're really honest, we find ourselves, and it's pretty easy to slip into that pattern of just living for ourselves. How many of y'all ever done that? Raise your hand and I said hi. Just own it. Some of you are just you're like the Blessed Virgin Mary, never did a thing in your life outside of for other people. We're going to get to you in just a second. Don't worry. You're just as problematic. But we have this tendency, we can slip into living for ourselves, and we might call this a narcissistic tendency. See, I said the word narcissist after I asked you to raise your hand, because nobody would raise their hand after I threw that word out there. You'd be like, wait a second, did he just call me narcissistic? Probably so. And if we're all honest, some of us slip into it. You're not clinically narcissistic, but you might have like a Wednesday, here or there, right? And narcissism, here's the problem with this idea of living for ourselves. At the end of the day, it isolates us. It isolates us, and we find ourselves ignoring the people around us and the needs of others. And it just creates this space. Like, you might know a person who we might say is clinically narcissistic, and they're not exactly wonderful to be around. And so the more we kind of focus internally on ourselves, and the more we ignore the needs of others, we tend to find ourselves isolated. And this happens in spirituality too, by the way. There is a spirituality that we could call hyper me, like hyper me spirituality. And the conservative church tends toward this type of narcissistic spirituality, okay? It tends to be like, hey, we're here to make everyone like us. If that isn't narcissism, I don't know what is. And that's a tendency, right? And it becomes, and oftentimes in conservative forms of spirituality, it tends to be about personal, like the personal side of our relationship with God, me personally not going to hell or purgatory, or at least having to be there very long, And that's what happens in that tendency is. Now, here's the thing. While that has a danger to it, there's an equally dangerous way of living, and that is living for others. Now, how many of you have ever found yourself slipping into an unhealthy pattern where you might live for the opinions and the needs of others? Raise your hand up nice and high. And we might call this a heroic tendency, heroism. This idea that I'm going to solve the problems of every person around me, that I'm going to bear that, and you ignore the needs of the self, and this leads to exhaustion. We're just always trying to meet everybody else's needs. We're neglecting our own self-care to our own self-harm. And there is a spirituality that looks like this too, and it's a hyper-them spirituality. So a hyper-them spirituality is the tendency of the progressive church. See, some of you earlier, you were like, that's not me. I'm not a part of the conservative church. Well, I'm coming after you now. Because see, the tendency of the progressive church is to live in a hyper-them space, that we can fix every problem. We can be the heroes. We can be empowered by God. And we are here to fix every injustice in the world, and we are to do it right now. And that is an exhausting spirituality that makes us feel like we're never enough, that we could never do enough, we can never be enough. We can easily get overwhelmed by the problems. And here's the thing. If we're only given these two choices of hyper-me spirituality and hyper-them spirituality, if we have no alternative, we're headed to isolation or exhaustion. We need an alternative. We need another way of seeing ourselves. Because seeing ourselves as living for me is problematic, and seeing ourselves as living for others is equally problematic. And these are the problems with binaries. Binaries that put us into this space of either or. They bind us, and we don't see the beautiful alternatives that are found in a spectrum and in that way of seeing and perceiving the world that we live in. Now, Scripture offers us some wisdom on an alternative path to get us out of the binary of hyper-me, hyper-they. Live for myself, live for others, as if those are our only two choices. There's a little letter in the New Testament, 2 Corinthians. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, it says this. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here, so I want you to try and sift through, and your assignment is to figure out the alternative that's being offered to us in Scripture today, okay? So this is what 2 Corinthians chapter 5 says. It says, for Christ's love compels us. I cannot read that without thinking of The Exorcist. Sorry, I just can't do it. I know I should be able to, but I can't. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, good for you. Okay, so for Christ's love compels us because we are convinced that one died for all and therefore all died. And he, being Jesus, died for all, that those who live, hint, hint, here it comes, should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. Did you catch the alternative there? Okay, maybe not. Romans. We'll go to Romans. Another great letter. Probably Paul, probably an authentic letter of the Apostle Paul, probably his most theological letter, writing to a Christian community that lived in Rome. And this is what he writes. He says, none of us lives for ourselves alone, and none of us dies for ourselves alone. Hint, hint, here comes the answer. If we live for the Lord. So 2 Corinthians is traditionally attributed to Paul, but there's reasons to doubt that it was actually written by Paul, but maybe a school of people who loved him. But we'll just say Paul offers us a vision for an alternative choice. Not to live for ourselves, but also not to live for others. And that is to live for Christ. Now, Christ, I want to be very clear, is the reality, the divine reality that we would say was fully incarnate in Jesus as part of the Christian tradition. Now, this is not a life that is lived for myself. It's not a life that is lived for the sake of others. Paul doesn't say that. Paul doesn't offer us this option. He doesn't say, hey, we don't live for ourselves. We actually live for other people. Nope, that's not what he says. He doesn't say we don't just die for ourselves, right? He doesn't just say, well, we die for others. No, he offers something else. And it's something altogether different. So what does it mean to live for Christ? How many of you have ever heard that before? You've been around church long enough, you're like, Ryan, old news. Old news. I saw this in my social media feed days ago, Ryan. Okay, so if I could, I would love to just say, well, what does that mean to you to live for Christ? Because I would bet as many people as we have in the room, for those of you that are just listening in online, there's like 4,000 here. we'd probably get 4,000 different answers, right? What does it mean to live for Christ? Some would say, well, it means going to church. Right? Some would say, oh, living for Christ means that you give 10% in the offering. Not a bad idea, by the way, but you do that, right? It means that you get up every morning early before the sun comes up and you get in and you dig into your Bible and you read your Bible and you pray. It means that you fast. Some would say, oh, no, it means that you look for the injustices in the world and you go out and you fix them and you give yourself to them. What does it actually mean to live for Christ? Well, it means you got to believe these fundamental beliefs, these doctrines, these truths. And they say, well, what does it mean as a community to live for Christ? What does it mean as a community to dedicate ourselves to the living Christ? Well, that's a great question. I am glad you asked it. And Paul actually kind of gives a hint at this in Galatians, another letter that he writes. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, he says this, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. So living for Christ, I would say, means fulfilling the law of Christ. Right? If we want to live for Christ, then we go, oh, well, Paul's telling us that there is some law that we fulfill. And in the Gospel of John, the writer is giving us a picture of the significance of the importance of Jesus, and he's telling us a beautiful story about Jesus as the divine wisdom personified. And it's this beautiful story of how some received the divine wisdom and some did not, but the divine wisdom gave of itself. And the divine wisdom is the way, the truth, and life. And the divine wisdom is the bread of life. And the divine wisdom is the gate. All these things come out of the Gospel of John, this beautiful poetic language. And in John chapter 13, Jesus, in his own words, according to John, gives what the law is. The divine logos, the wisdom of God says, a new command I give you. A new law, in other words. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Sounds like a song that we sang earlier. Somebody should write a song about that. They'll know us by our love. Jesus says, listen, if you want to live the law of Christ, listen, I get it. There's all these things. There's all these other laws. There's all these other commandments that can help form you. But what they're trying to form you into ultimately is to be a person who loves one another. Now, this new command that John gives us in the mouth of Jesus feels beautiful. Love one another. But I'm going to be honest with you, it's not super helpful. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Love one another. Because I meet with people that say, well, to really love people, you got to speak the truth in love. And then they say some of the most awful, most horrible, terrible things to people. Well, to love someone means that you go sell all your possessions and you give it to the poor. And then you don't eat and you just become a burden on everybody else. That's why I love Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, which we just read. Because Galatians puts some flesh on it. It gives it some teeth. Paul says you fulfill the law of Christ, which is to love one another by doing something that's very simple to understand, difficult to do, and that is to carry one another's burdens. To carry each other's burdens. This is what it is to live for Christ. This is what it means to, I'm not going to live for myself. I'm not going to live for others. I'm going to live for Christ, which means I will live my life in community, in a context where I share one another's burdens. And so that's really what we are as a community grounded in, and that is to say that we connect with one another through shared burdens. And in doing that, we live out the law of love. See, it's not just enough to say, well, I love everyone. We love everybody here at Crossroads. That's wonderful. But what does that actually mean? It means we are here to carry one another's burdens. And I don't know if you know this or not, but we don't have a large staff. So that's not like staff members' responsibility to carry all y'all's burdens. That would be serious. I mean, I would quit tomorrow. But the idea of, if I can use the word Christian community, the idea of a life filled with love for one another is to put ourselves in a situation where we carry one another's burdens, and in doing that, fulfill the law of Christ. And that is what it means to live for Christ. Now, if reading your Bible helps you carry one another's burdens, then I say read it. If memorizing scripture verses helps you carry one another's burdens, then I say memorize them. If giving 10% in the offering helps you carry one another's burdens, then I say amen. If volunteering at any local organization, volunteering at your church helps you carry one another's burdens, then I say do it. But if it's done for some other reason, then you're just a clanging cymbal, right? It's just puffed up spirituality. We have plenty of examples of that in our world currently and in the Gospels and in the stories of our spiritual ancestors. But it's in the caring and in the sharing of burdens that we connect, and that makes it a beautiful space. And so you see, when we live for ourselves, when I say, well, I'm going to live for myself, what am I doing? I'm carrying all of my burdens myself. I'm living under a lie that I could actually do that. And if I choose to live for others, which feels noble, which feels heroic, which feels wonderful, what am I actually saying? I can carry all your burdens myself, which is an equally deceptive way of thinking. You can't do it. But living for Christ is carrying our burdens together, empowered by the Spirit of Christ. It's in the simplicity of meal chains. It's in the simplicity of a small group that gathers once a week, every other week, to just share what's going on in life together. It is in the spiritual practices that we've been taught, like going to church. It is in the spiritual practices of generosity, of giving, not only to church, but also to things that we care about deeply in the world. It's in the spiritual practices of picking up the phone and calling people and truly saying, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not even asking, hey, how can I help? This is what I'd like to do. Will it be helpful? Far better question, by the way. This is what I would like. Just write this down. This is worth coming. Hey, this is what I would like to do. Fill in the blank. Will that be helpful to you? Sometimes people get so overwhelmed. I get so overwhelmed by life, I couldn't even answer the question what you could do to help. But what I know is when people say, hey, here's what I'm going to do, I've really rarely been like, oh, crap, I can't believe they're going to do that. That's going to be a pain. Like there's something powerful about the initiative of it. So in your everyday normal life, like we as a community do this, and we're trying, that's why there's group life here. That's why there are ministries. That's why we receive donations, because we create a space where we care for one another's burdens. And you come in here with a spiritual burden to worship. You come in here with a spiritual burden to learn, to encounter God in community. And so we create this space together. That's a part of it all. But in your everyday normal life, tomorrow, what time is it right now? Don't look at your clock. No, I'm actually on time today. How you like them apples? 10:30. Where will you be tomorrow morning at 10:30? Just think about that for a second. Where will you be tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning? That's your everyday normal life. This is my everyday normal life, and it's weird. I totally get that. But where will you be at 10:30? Because at 10:30 in the morning tomorrow, if you want to live the law of Christ, you've got to get proximate to someone to share their burdens. You got to get close to where they are. We cannot stay at a distance. So this is beautiful, and I love it, and I think we should gather here together. There's something powerful when we experience the divine in community. It's been a part of human culture from the beginning. Like we've given it different words and different languages, but we know something powerful happens when we are gathered together, sharing an experience. But it's really difficult to get truly proximate in this type of a setting. And so the question becomes, how are you getting proximate with people who will carry your burdens with you and that you can carry their burdens too? And it can look different. I'm not here to answer that question for you. You are super smart people. You go to this church. But how can you do that? And there are ways, right? You could join a group that exists, or I mean, this is crazy talk now. Like, reach out to 4 or 5 people that you enjoy being around as opposed to 4 or 5 strangers that might be all weird that show up at your house and you do it because you're supposed to do it, and we call it small groups and we think there's a Bible verse for it. There's not. Right? And it's not to say there's anything wrong with that, but you might not be wired for strangers. Some people are wired for strangers. Right? We call them politicians. No, I'm just kidding. Some people are wired for strangers. They have a gift of hospitality. They're extroverted. They get energy from meeting new people. If that's you, come talk to me and we'll help you get a group going, and we'll make it for people who are kind of wired for strangers, but they don't really know anybody and they don't know how to, and we'll help do that. But a real powerful way is to just be an adult and invite 4 or 5 people into your life that maybe you've known for a while and say, hey, you want to get together every now and then intentionally to just share what's going on in our lives. You can do it under the guise of reading a book or listening to an amazing talk from this guy Ryan at my church, whatever. But that's one way. You got to get proximate. We've got to get close. At work, like, turn on your spidey senses. Don't be afraid to connect with someone who you sense is struggling, is going through something difficult. And then when you walk away from that initial conversation, prayerfully consider, what could I do to help? And then follow up. Hey, I'd like to do this. Would that be helpful? I want to encourage you in your everyday normal life to keep margin. To keep margin in your finances and in your time and in your emotions. We do a whole series on this concept. You and I cannot share one another's burdens when we burden ourselves in every space that is useful to share one another's burdens. You can't share someone's burdens if you have no time to share, if you have no emotional energy to share, and if you have no finances to share. It's impossible to do. Carrying each other's burdens happens in the margins of life. And there are seasons of life where you're marginless. I totally get that. And that's where we and people have to come alongside of you and carry the burden. But if it's the pattern of your life to always live to the size of your fishbowl, whether it's your financial fishbowl, whether it's your time fishbowl, whether it's your emotional fishbowl, if it's, I'm just going to live to the size of that, you will never be able to carry other people's burdens. And that's a fine way to live unless you're trying to follow Jesus. So I want to encourage you. Figure out how to put that margin in those spaces so that you can be prepared to carry one another's burdens. And as you carry each other's burdens, remember this principle. Judgment makes the burden heavier, but wisdom will lighten the load. Do not enter a space to help to carry a burden with a judgmental attitude. Well, if they wouldn't have bought that, if they would have done this, if they wouldn't have done that, if they would have said this, if they would have gone to work, if they would. All that does is weigh the burden down. You're not elevating anyone, not lightening that load. So come into that space, abandoning, leaving judgments behind. And listen, wisdom reflects. Wisdom reflects back. Get through the moment, ease the burden, and then sit down and ask really great questions like, hey, how can we make sure we don't find ourselves in this situation again? That's wisdom. Are there things, or was it just a circumstance that was completely unavoidable? These are good things to wrestle with. But in the moment, when you're trying to help somebody and you're trying to ease their burden, do not place on them your judgments. I don't want to do that. We shouldn't do that. It does not help. It doesn't help. But wisdom says we can't just leave foolishness and follow foolishness. And how many of you would raise your hand up nice and high and say, some of the burdens I've carried in life are a measure of my own foolishness? Right? That's not a trick question, okay? Like, that's just the human condition, right? And I want to encourage you in your everyday normal life to remember this, that the most important person is always the person with a broken heart. And in our church, the most important person is always the person with the broken heart. And you want to know why they're the most important person? Because that's where God is. A lot of us are here at church because, and whether you use this metaphor or not, there's something to it. Like, we participate in this kind of setting because we want to be closer to God. Like, is that a fair statement? Like, we want to be closer to the divine. We want to encounter the really real. And we want our lives to count in that sphere. Well, I love what the poet says in Psalm chapter 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. 2 points. Number one, you might be here today and you are brokenhearted and you are crushed in spirit. And I want to share with you that the Lord is close. If we can open our hearts in those moments and surrender to the presence of God, we can find comfort even when our circumstances don't change. The Lord is close to you. And if you're not in a space of brokenheartedness and you are not in a space of being crushed and you are seeking God, you know where you will find God? Right next to the brokenhearted. Read your Bible, absolutely. I'm all for it. Go for it. Listen to podcasts, absolutely. Listen to music that inspires you, absolutely. And there's benefit to those things, but if you really want to encounter God, you got to get close to the brokenhearted because that's where God is felt and needed the most. That's why, if you've ever been on a trip, whether you call it a missions trip, an encounter trip, whatever it might be, if you've ever gone into a space where there is brokenheartedness and it's cultural, and you are transformed in that experience because God was there. You didn't take God there, by the way. That's foolishness. You actually encountered God for the first time. And that's why trips to Puerto Rico and places where we know we can come alongside groups that are working in brokenhearted cultures and communities who are crushed in spirit, not because we have all the answers, but because we have a deep hunger and thirst for God. And that means you gotta go where there's pain and you gotta go where there's suffering and you gotta be reminded that that's where God is. That's why Jesus said, blessed are the poor. That's what it's about. That's why we're transformed. It's not like, oh, I'm just so grateful that I have an iPod. I can't believe they don't have an iPod here. I'm so grateful now. Okay, yeah. But what you're actually encountering in that transformative experience is God. And it's only in those spaces. And it's not always a church trip. You just find yourself in spaces that are beautiful, of people who are brokenhearted, of people who are crushed in spirit, and yet they maintain a level of joy that you can't imagine. Why? Because that's where the divine is. Comforting and empowering, and all of a sudden you encounter it and you're like, oh man, I might have had it wrong. I might have had it wrong. And I want us to remember this, that in community, sharing burdens works. It works because we all have different capacities. We all have different capacities. Some of us in the room have incredible abilities with what we can get done in a short amount of time. Your time capacity is big. Some of you have financial resources that others don't. Your financial capacity is big. And so you become a generous person with your time because what you can do with your time, and you become this high capacity burden carrier through your time, or you become a high capacity burden carrier through your generosity financially. We all have differing capacities. And so those are like when we talk about gifts, we say, oh, there's these gifts, right? That can be really fancy language for capacity. But we all share the calling to this, right? We all share a calling to give our time to one another, but some will be able to give their time in higher capacity ways. We all share the calling and the burden of giving of our finances to great works in our community, to our church, but there are those that have a greater capacity that can do that at a different level, and that's wonderful. We celebrate all that. And so just remember that. Like, you don't get discouraged because you go, well, I don't have the time, or I don't have the finances, or I don't have the gifts. You have your capacity. I have my capacity. One of my favorite like lines in all of Scripture is in Acts, where Peter and John are going. They say, silver and gold I don't have, but what I have I give you. And don't get caught up in like, maybe it's not silver or gold. Maybe it's like time I don't have, but silver and gold I do. I give it to you. How many of you like sponsor children through like organizations, like World Vision? Yeah, that's awesome. We've done that at times, and I'm going to be honest, like I would just be real upfront, like silver and gold I have, and this I give, but please don't ask me to write a letter. I just felt like I didn't have the time. And I slept okay at night. I said, find somebody that doesn't have money and let them be the sponsor, and they can like write the letters and everything. I don't need that, right? This for me is just what I can do. So all that to say, you have your capacity, live into it, and don't get weirded out by it because you can't do everything, you can't do this or that. Live free of that. And here's the thing, if we as a community will share each other's burdens, if you and I will go out into this world and recognize to live for Christ is not to follow some set of religious rules or, restrictions on what we do and don't do and movies we don't watch and this or that, all that moral theism stuff. If we'll actually say to live for Christ is to carry one another's burdens, that's my tangible way of making sense of it, what happens is your life is filled with support and rest. Isn't that good? Like instead of having to choose between exhaustion and isolation, you can live a life of support and rest. And that will make you better. It will make the world a better place. It will honor the vision of Jesus. And it is really a living out of Jesus' invitation in Matthew chapter 11 when he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will rest. You will get rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And the burden is light because it is shared. The burden is light because it is shared. The yoke is easy because it is the command to love through sharing. It's not a commandment to love by taking care of all your own responsibilities so that you're not a burden to other people. It's not a command to love and take off everybody else's burdens onto yourself so they can live freely. No. It's easy, and the yoke is not a burden because we are sharing it. And I believe this deeply, that a church that will share burdens is a church that will grow. That it will grow spiritually, maturing people into this practice of shared burden and shared caring. But I believe it will also grow numerically. You know why? Because we all need help. I've never met a person in this life, no matter how much money they have, no matter how little money they have, no matter how much support that doesn't just have moments in life where they go, "I just need to talk to somebody. I just need somebody. I just need to not feel alone. I just need to know that I'm not alone." And in a space that can tangibly represent that spiritual reality, the truth is, we wouldn't have enough seats. We wouldn't have enough seats. So as we get ready to have communion together today and pause and reflect for a few minutes and experience God in this moment, what do you sense God inviting you into today? I really do. My prayer is that every person who's tuning in online, who's listening, who's here, I really do pray that you will become a member at Crossroads Church, because I think it's a pretty amazing place. And it's because John Smith told me it was. I think it's been a beautiful place since it started, and I think it continues to be that. And I think everybody should be a member. I think everybody should give their time, talent, and treasure to make this space safe, to make this space beautiful, to share one another's burdens, to share the burdens that are experienced in our world outside of here. And I hope that you will become a member. And we try to make it super easy. You do it every year. And people always say, "Well, why do we have to do it every year?" And my response is, why shouldn't you do it every year? I mean, I could ask you that question too, so don't ask me that question. We just do it every year because we all need to be reminded of our commitment, okay? Because it's an active engagement with one another. We're saying once a year, come on people, give me a break. Once a year, I'm asking you to reflect on, do I really want to give myself to one another? It's not membership like Netflix, It's a commitment to these people around you. I think it's worth reflecting on once a year and saying, yes, I'm still in. But if you do have a question about it, you can always ask me. I'm being silly. I hope that you sense that invitation during this series. I hope you'll do that. Maybe you're here today and you are brokenhearted and you have a heavy burden. I want to encourage you in the next few moments to allow a season of music. Music is powerful, by the way. I don't think that music is manipulative. I think that people can be manipulative with music. But I think that music is therapeutic, and I think that music is healing, and I think that it opens up our hearts to something more powerful than we know, because it speaks to a part of us that is really unspeakable. And so during this next two songs, like, just symbolically lay the burden down. Just symbolically say, I want to be with people who will help me carry this burden. I want to be close and proximate to a God who says you don't have to carry it alone. That's the goodness of God, that you're not alone. You're going to walk out of here with the same circumstance. That I can promise. But you don't have to carry it alone. And so maybe it's this setting the burden down. Maybe there's somebody you're here with, and you just want to lean over to them and say, I'm heavy-hearted because of this, and I need somebody to carry it with me. This is a great opportunity to do that, to experience the presence of God together. And I really do believe that Spooky Palooza is a great example of sharing a burden, that we share a burden of loving our community together and creating a space where people can come and experience our church and our way of thinking about following Christ that they might not know is possible. And so I want to encourage you to sense an invitation to make Spooky Palooza a success. There's some real simple things that are needed. Candy is needed. It will suck if there's no candy for kids. Booths are needed. Giving up our time, a bit of our talent, sharing that burden together. I can't do 40 booths myself. You can't, but we could all do something. And so I would encourage you to really sense that invitation as, okay, if I'm a part of this, that's what it means. I'm actually going to share that burden. Somehow I'll participate in making it a place of hope, not just a success. I don't even know what that means, but a space of hope. A space of fun where we live out our values of sharing the burden of loving one another. So we're going to have communion together. Listen, if you're here today and you're new to this whole Jesus thing, this church thing, or maybe you're new to Crossroads and you're like, oh, I don't think I've signed the paper. I haven't gone through the class. I don't think I'm allowed to have the Jesus snacks, as one of our little kids called them. The Jesus snacks are for everybody. Okay? So you're welcome to the Jesus snack. It's the mouths of children. It's amazing. The Jesus snacks are for everybody because the Jesus snacks remind us that what will heal the world is love and forgiveness, not judgment, not condemnation, not violence. Resistance, yes, but nonviolent resistance. Truth, yes, but not hatred. And so we take this as a symbol, right, as a reminder that that's going to fuel us. And our example par excellence is the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus. And so you are all, every one of you, welcome to the table today as we sing this. So I'd like for you to stand if you're able to, if you want to. If you want to sit, you can sit too, but sometimes it's easier to stand, especially if you're in the seats to get out, for people to get out to communion. As we just reflect and pause for a few moments on what it means to be a community that connects through shared burdens, thus fulfilling the law of Christ. The body of Christ broken for you, the blood of Christ shed for you and all 8 billion people on the planet.
Flood this heart with assurance of your mercy. Fill this mind with knowledge of your love. Hold me fast through the deep and steady current. How long till these tears are gone? Every hour, awake me to your presence. Shine your light brighter than the dawn. How long till these tears are gone? How long till these tears are gone? I'll fix my eyes on eternity above, where every lie is uncovered by your love. I'll fix my eyes on eternity above, where every lie is uncovered by your love. Every lie, every shadow is uncovered by your love. Where every lie, every shadow is uncovered by your love.
We're going to need a little help with this next song. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Sing this along with us.
When the night has come, the land is dark, and the moon is the only light we see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, and the mountain should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me.
Was anybody else singing along to that song? Oh yeah, it's a classic. You guys can have a seat. I just love the reminder that that song is that, just like Ryan was saying, we're meant for this community. We're meant to stand by each other in those tears, in the joy. I love the song. Yay song. In just a minute, we're going to be inviting our room host to come around, collect those donations and connect cards. So while you're getting those ready, I just have a final kind of few reminders for you guys. I just wanted to remind you all that our peacemaking discussion groups are all available and that it's not too late to jump in. We call these classes the Peacemaking Path, and it's really just our way of redefining what healthy spirituality is. So on Thursday nights, we have Peacemaking 401, and that follows along with this current teaching series, Hope is Here. So discussing the things that Ryan has been talking about on each Sunday. Now, if you're looking for the Peace 201 class, that is happening on Saturday mornings over Zoom. And then on Sunday mornings is Peacemaking 101. And it's great. That one just started last week. It's not too late. You can jump in and join any of these amazing groups and classes that we have going on throughout the week. And if you're looking for more details, you can just go onto your Crossroads app on your phone. You might need to give it a little refresh, but all of the information is on that home page. And as always, you can come see me in the atrium under the Fresh Perspectives banner. I will be there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about any of the various classes that we have going on throughout the week. So with that, I will invite the room host to come on forward, collect those connect cards and donations, and I will pass it right back to the band.
Reach out now, take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. Reach out now, take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. Reach out now and take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. Reach out now and take a hand, help somebody while we can. Things will get better when we learn to love somebody, love somebody. So come on, all my sisters and brothers, we can all give a little more help to each other. When it's all been said and done, gonna know it's by love. When it's all been said and done, gonna know it's by love.
Go ahead and have a stand with me, would you, for just a moment. We're going to get you out of here. We've got our blessing for the day. We finish all of our services with a blessing. Two little things I want to make sure you're aware of. We've got our meet and mingle, a.k.a. the after party, happening right now. So if you want to stop by, hang out, meet some folks, introduce yourself, that would be wonderful. Proud Peacemakers is hanging out upstairs in the living room, up in the office. And so for queer family members and allies and folks that want to connect with one another, shared experiences, oftentimes difficult ones, it's a safe environment to go process. It's there. Mary's up there, would love to meet you. So feel free to stop up there. And I'm going to say this too. The hot water tank went out a couple weeks ago here at your church. And so we had a little unexpected expense of replacing a hot water heater. And so if you are of the mind to help cover some of that expense over the next week or so and think you could give a little bit extra, that would be wonderful. We didn't have that in the budget so that was a fun moment. But it's all fixed. So if you're grateful for hot water, maybe over the next week, give a little extra. So we call it the mothership, and it turns out there isn't one. It's just us. So we will be the ones who pay for the water heater. So thank you, everyone, for that. All right, so our blessing today, if you want to raise your arms to receive this into your innermost being, that's kind of what we do. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's no problem. But here we go. May the love of Christ give you the strength to be vulnerable, sharing your burdens with one another in trust and compassion. And may our eyes be open to see the burdens others are carrying, and may we share these burdens wisely and without judgment. And as a community, may we, Crossroads, become a church where burdens are shared freely and where the Spirit of Christ leads us into deeper support and deeper rest and deeper unity. And this week, may we all create peace, empowered by the love that sustains and holds all living things. Amen. Have an awesome week, everyone. Stick around for a few minutes, have a snack, say hi, all that good stuff.